The Shadows of Coldwater Creek. Nestled deep in the Appalachian Mountains lies Coldwater Creek, a small, seemingly idyllic town with a population of just over 100 people. It's the kind of place where everyone knows each other, where life moves at a slower, more deliberate pace. But beneath the surface, Coldwater Creek harbors a dark, sinister secret, a secret the townspeople are desperate to keep hidden. The legend of Coldwater Creek begins with the town's founder, Silas Harper. In the late 1800s, Silas led a group of settlers into the mountains, seeking a fresh start away from the larger, more chaotic cities. The land he chose was rich, with fertile soil and a clear, cold creek running through it. But there was something else in those woods, something ancient and malevolent. As the town began to flourish, strange things started to happen. Livestock would go missing, only to be found days later, mutilated in ways that no animal could have done. People began to report eerie sounds coming from the woods at night, low, guttural growls and whispers that made their skin crawl. And then, there were the disappearances. The first to go missing was a young girl named Emily Turner. She was only 10 years old, last seen playing by the creek. When she didn't return home for supper, the entire town turned out to search for her. They combed through the woods, calling her name, but there was no sign of Emily. All they found was her favorite doll, lying by the edge of the creek, its dress stained with mud and something darker, blood. As weeks turned into months, more people vanished, men, women, and children alike. Each time, the townspeople would search, but all they ever found were remnants, a scrap of clothing, a broken shoe, a lock of hair. Fear gripped Coldwater Creek, but no one dared leave. The town was their home, and they had nowhere else to go. Silas Harper, desperate to save his town, turned to the old stories his grandmother used to tell him, stories of the ancient spirits that roamed the Appalachian woods. According to legend, these spirits could be appeased with offerings, sacrifices of blood and flesh. Silas, half mad with fear and grief, decided that this was the only way to protect Coldwater Creek. One cold, moonless night, Silas gathered the townspeople and told them of his plan. They would offer a sacrifice to the spirits in exchange for the safety of the town. The people were horrified, but they were also desperate. After much debate, they agreed to Silas's plan. They chose an outsider, a drifter who had recently passed through town, and in the dead of night, they bound him and took him to the heart of the woods. The townspeople stood in a circle as Silas performed the ritual, chanting in a language none of them understood. The drifter screamed and begged for mercy, but his cries were drowned out by the howling wind and the sound of Silas's voice, growing louder and more frenzied. Finally, Silas raised a knife and brought it down, ending the drifter's life. As his blood soaked into the ground, the wind stopped, and an eerie silence fell over the woods. The next morning, the townspeople awoke to find the missing people returned to their homes, alive but changed. Their eyes were vacant, their skin pale and cold to the touch. They didn't speak of what had happened to them, and when asked, they would only smile, a cold, empty smile that sent shivers down the spine. For a while, things seemed to return to normal. The disappearances stopped, and the town began to heal. But soon, the townspeople noticed something strange. The returned were different. They would stand for hours, staring into the woods, their heads cocked as if listening to something only they could hear. And at night, they would leave their homes and gather by the creek, whispering to the darkness. As the years passed, the truth of what Silas had done faded into legend, a story to frighten children. But the rituals continued. Every generation, when the disappearances started again, the townspeople would gather in the woods, choosing a new sacrifice to appease the spirits. And every time, the missing would return, but they were never the same. Now, in the present day, Coldwater Creek is still a quiet, unassuming town. Outsiders are always welcomed with open arms, but they never stay long. Those who do often vanish, becoming another chapter in the town's dark history. The townspeople continue their lives, pretending that everything is normal, but they know better. They know that the woods are watching, waiting. Every so often, on a dark, moonless night, you can still hear the faint sound of chanting coming from the heart of the woods, carried on the wind. And if you listen closely, you might hear something else, whispers, low and guttural, promising that the shadows of Coldwater Creek will never truly leave. If you ever find yourself in Coldwater Creek, remember this: when night falls, stay inside. Don't listen to the whispers, and whatever you do, never, ever go into the woods. Because in Coldwater Creek, the past is never truly dead, and the shadows are always waiting for their next sacrifice.